So, something that's really cool about the Bible that I think a lot of people don't think about or they might take for granted. For the first 100 years or so of the New Testament church, they didn't have the Gospels as we have them today, right? They didn't have a book called the New Testament that they could go to and find out what they needed to know about Jesus. Basically, between 33 AD and about 100 AD, the Gospels were being written, the epistles were being written, the stories were being told. And something that's very interesting is that they were being told in light of not the New Testament, not what the New Testament documents say, but they were telling the story in light of what the Old Testament prophesied about Jesus. We all know culturally the Christmas story, right? Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given," right? We all know that story. But Isaiah was one of the many prophets that told the story of what God was going to do in order to bring about his salvation plan through Israel for the world. Another prophet that gave very similar prophecies was Zechariah. He was another one of the prophets in the Old Testament that we have access to, that the New Testament church were reading about, and they were reading through, trying to discern or trying to figure out what God had just done through the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus. The New Testament church, those that were in the church after Jesus' resurrection and ascension to heaven, had only the Old Testament to look back at and try to figure out exactly what God had said prior to it, in order to bring about an understanding of what God had done through Jesus. So one of the prophets that the early church began to look at was Zechariah. We actually get 5 prophecies from the prophet Isaiah about Jesus. I want to go through those 5 prophecies that Jesus fulfilled long after Zechariah penned the words. So one of the first ones is Zechariah 9:9. The prophecy is, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he. Humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." The prophecy was given in Zechariah 9 and fulfilled in Matthew chapter 21, verse 1 through 9, when Jesus came in triumphantly into the city prior to his crucifixion. We call that entrance Palm Sunday. Another one of the prophecies that Zechariah gave that Jesus fulfilled was Zechariah 11. He wrote, "Then I said to them, if it seems good to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. And they weighed out as my wages 30 pieces of silver. Then the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, the lordly price at which I was priced by them. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord to the potter." The fulfillment of this prophecy happened in Matthew chapter 26, when Judas betrayed Jesus and sold him for 30 pieces of silver. The third prophecy that Zechariah gave about Jesus is found in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10. "And I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him who they have pierced, they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly over him as one weeps over a firstborn." We find this prophecy fulfilled in John chapter 19, verse 34 through 37, when Jesus was pierced by the Roman soldiers while he was being crucified. Another prophecy is Zechariah 13, verse 7. "Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, against the man who stands next to me, declares the Lord of hosts. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. I will turn my hand against the little ones." We find the fulfillment of this prophecy in Matthew chapter 26, where right before Jesus' arrest, he basically prophesied or predicted that his disciples would abandon him. One of the last prophecies we'll talk about is Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4. "On that day his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives that lies before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall be split in two from east to west by a very wide valley, so that one half of the mount shall move forward and the other half southward." We see the prophecy fulfilled at Jesus' second coming as described in Acts chapter 1, verse 11, and Revelation chapter 19, verse 11 through 16, where Jesus will return on the Mount of Olives. As you're reading through the New Testament, recognize that their only understanding of what God had accomplished through Jesus came in light of reading the Old Testament. We can't get rid of the importance of the Old Testament in our understanding of God and in our understanding of Jesus, right? Jesus himself even said, read the prophets. They spoke about me. They talked about me. They were given information by God about me. But even the New Testament Pharisees and the Sadducees and the keepers of the law totally missed Jesus, even though they were apparently religious people. So don't discount the Old Testament. We're going to dive in the next video to an additional prophet that has prophecies specifically about Jesus again, so that you can see that even the Old Testament speaks directly about Jesus.